Let's talk other people's games. Hey!
Ho ho!
I'm here with Steve. Steve's gonna be painting while I'm talking. See his wonderful pile of Star Wars figures that
Everything's out of focus.
Well, that's all right. We'll figure it out. But you can see Steve's painting some remnant troopers, which are the stormtroopers who survived the collapse of the Empire and are just sort of run around with remnants of their armor. They basically become the
Hodgepodge.
mercenaries and dregs.
Yeah.
They were planned to be in the Mandalorian, but they never actually made the cuts.
Well, they are, but they just made them the it's like that first episode, the normal stormtrooper armor, just filthy. I would have rather them do this, but that's all they did. Right. They just kept the traditional shit on there.
Yep. Well, we got some people watching. We'll say hello real quick. Not Jay says howdy, y'all. Howdy back.
Hey. What up, man?
I see you last weekend or so ago. Evening all from Santiago. I believe that means whale's vagina in German. From Charles. John Longford gives thumbs up, and Not Jay, nice. John Longford is, I'm out of it. When did the Empire lose? Oh, they lost, baby. Didn't you see those last crap movies where the New Order took over? But what were they called? The
First Order or
First Order, whatever. Yeah.
Those are the dark times.
Yeah. So Mandalorian takes place during, of course, right after the collapse of the Empire and the next pile of movies. And so we're going to talk tonight a little bit about some of the other games we play down here in the basement with the Basement Generals. Some of them are ones we play pretty frequently, and some of them we haven't played in a while, and generally are kind of staples when we aren't playing Wiley Games stuff. So just so you know, we don't play my stuff all the time. So get started. We're going to talk about one of our favorites, Super System, which was a
God.
Is there something in your brain?
I'm muting Steve. So I'm muting Steve because he's getting talking to. Anyway, Super Systems was one of our favorites. It's a superhero set of rules from Scott Pyle, and we stopped after the second edition because I don't know, it changed kind of how the game was played, I thought, and it uses a really cool. He calls it the goal system, which you probably heard of before, where it's basically a kind of a dice pool system, and you get. Are you back, Steve?
Yeah, it's the kids. The kids are running in and out. They've got all their friends over, of course. So
yeah, so it uses a pretty simple system where 4, 5s, and 6s on the 6-sided dice hit. 6s count as 2 hits. You're rolling piles of dice. It's a lot of fun, so it equals out. What it did was make us buy a bunch of HeroClix miniatures and repaint them as some of our made-up heroes. That's where we got such classics as Hero Sandwich, a guy that I painted up as a giant sandwich man, and repurposed other characters. Like we had a Shazam character that we painted in Mexican colors called Numero Uno. So it was a great chance to just screw around and play with miniatures that we don't normally play with. And being a big comic book fan, and Steve is too, we've been painting all those for years. And we get it out every once in a while, but we haven't played it in a little while. So next on my list, of course, is Crimson Skies, a good old Phasa game that hex-based pre-plotting, pre-plotted flight system. The best part of it's filling in all the little circles as you take damage. It takes place in a in an alternate history where the United States fell apart during the Great Depression and split to all these different factions. So you've got Confederate states that broke off. You've got a big chunk of the Rust Belt is now the industrial states of America. The natives took back a big chunk of land. California and New York are their own free states. So it's a great game to play 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 or even 3-on-3, but it will take you all day if you play with more than that. So that's why we did that little Pulp Fighters version of the Starfighters a couple months back, because it's just, despite me totally loving the miniatures that go around Crimson Skies, it's really hard to play a big battle with lots of people, which is what you're going to see as a theme tonight. Because we have such a large group that we game with, we're playing with 6 to 8 guys about every night or every Thursday night. So we have to have rules that allow us to play that big of a game in 3 hours, that kind of thing. So speaking of which, so I am a big fan of Dan Mersey's stuff. So the Lion Rampant system, the Dragon Rampant, the Rebels and Patriots, the Pikeman's Lament, but I really fell in love with his stuff early when he did Dux Bellorum, which was his first Osprey series that dealt with the Dark Age Britain, and I think it is a fantastic job of capturing that period. And the rest of his books are great because I love the figure count. Most of your units are 6 to 12. You're only running 5 or 6 units a piece, and there's all kinds of room for variation, making your own versions of what you think different units should be like, and let you put a nice little campaign together. And then he's expanding it now to do Xenos Rampant, which will be using sci-fi miniatures, and so you can play 40K and that kind of thing if you want to. Sorry, I've been muting you a lot, Steve, because you got a lot of crap going on.
No, I know, and I've got their construction going on here that wasn't supposed to be going on here right now, but shit happens. But yeah, I think that back to Super System, the best part of that was just coming up with a name first, or digging through a box of just garbage HeroClix, because they goop that paint on them so much that there's really no detail on them, and just sitting around at your house and digging through HeroClix and saying, "Oh, I'll take this one and repaint it," and then pretty much on the spot coming up with names for characters.
Everybody coming up with their own super teams that were usually ridiculous.
Yeah, and
it's an easy game to min-max, but fortunately we don't have a whole lot of those people in our group. So,
and it's one of those games that like you were saying, how many people that we had in our gaming group is usually at the minimum there's 6 people, at the maximum there's 10 people, and there's a lot of games that we've played that we have stretched the rules and stretched them so much to where they're not supposed to be for a 6-player game. Some of them may not even be comfortable as a 4-player game, but we've worked on them to where we can have it to be for 8 players. And Super Systems was one of those games that we would always gravitate towards because we could stretch it out. What was it, like everybody got like 3 superheroes or something, and it still went pretty quick because
you had a whole system, or you had a build system for each one of them, so you could. It was all about where you wanted to kind of put your points. Did you want a super fast guy? Did you want a shooter? Did you want a super strong guy? John Longsword says the Super System looks good, but that book like it weighs 20 pounds. So that's because it was only available as a PDF. So these are all just double thick pages here. They're all in plastic sleeves. So the actual page count isn't that bad. And the actual rules themselves are about a dozen pages, if that. And the rest is just all the superpowers you can have and then a campaign and stuff. So, and then just a ton of pre-made good guys and bad guys. So it's the actual rules themselves are really short. They're not very much to them. So that book is just me printing them out and doing a double pages inside of plastic sleeves so they'll last forever. This version I don't think was ever produced as a printed book, so it was only available as a PDF. He's on like the 4th edition now, and I don't like it that much, and we already know this one, so it's one of those deals where this is what we play. We've never been one of those. Ooh, the 5th edition come out. Now we have to half the models that we painted are now no good anymore. So
and
we've never been that kind. We've had a ton of fun with the Dragon Rampant rules.
Great time.
We got some house rules, like the original rules are if you fail to activate a unit, your entire turn's over, and we've got some lousy dice rollers, so we don't play with that rule a lot. I don't think it changes the dynamic of the game that much. Oh, Mini Warmutt's with us. Yes, he didn't have anything better to do except eat his tacos. And he showed up.
Always the tacos.
Always the tacos. So, one of my early favorites by Sam Mustafa. Again, don't be scared, John. I took out the book and I used it so much that it fell apart, and I had to rebind everything and put it in a binder. Is Might and Reason. It's one of his first ones, and I think it, as a person who originally started playing the sort of 7 Years War sort of period with Age of Reason, I switched over to Might and Reason because it's really nice. You just have you basically have 2 stands, and that's how you set up your units, and they're either side by side, which is firing formation, or front to back, which is marching formation, and you can use whatever scale you want because it's all determined by base width. So everything is you're shooting a base width distance, or you're moving a base width distance. And we played an entire Imaginations campaign using it that went really smooth in our Imaginations Unkerland, which is a small Germanic country that I created that was originally settled by the Magyars after a battle, which they tried to escape, and they settled in this little hidden, secluded valley. So when I did the map of the whole thing, it just says like Greater Germany this way, the Turks are this way. We had a lot of fun. If you ever check out my Barron's blog and you click on the Unkerland buttons, I did full breakdowns of every region within it, complete with uniforms for that country or for that part of the country, and down to their diet and dialect and all that kind of stuff. It was just fun to do. And then of course to paint them all. And I chose Old Glory's 10mm scale stuff because those strips are just so easy to paint and they look great on the table. So John says Mustafa is one of my game deities. He is really he knows what he's talking about, and he's able to capture a period without dragging it down with minutia. Charles says, always the taco, never the enchilada. Yep, that's our warm-up. So, so as far as covering my early 18th century stuff, Might and Reason is the way to go for me. Again, it works great with a bunch of players. It's pretty easy to teach. I feel like it has a feel for the command and control for the period, and doesn't weigh down with a bunch of just crap stuff. So Steve's with us, but he's dealing with a bunch of stuff right now. So, Gaslight. So, when I was really getting into the Victorian sci-fi, I picked up Gaslight, Christopher Palmer and John Buck Surdu. Great little compact game. Played it forever. This is like my third copy because I've worn it completely apart. Played it for, I don't know, a couple of decades now. When did this thing come out?
Yeah. Mine's somewhere back
yeah,
here
we
in the
played
bush.
it for about 20 years. But then when we started working on bigger battles, we were able to actually find a way to speed up the game and still keep the fun flavor of all the wackiness that Gaslight has. One of the fun things about Gaslight was making your own troops and stuff. You could create contraptions and stuff and weapons by randomly rolling on a chart that they have that gave you all these weird variations and stuff. So,
And that was, I was going to say, that was one of those games that we kind of gravitated to playing a lot just because we could stretch that out with a ton of people.
Yeah, and it was fun making all of the weird contraptions because it came out right after the failure of the movie Atlantis, which gave us all these great toys from Disney. And
there's some great stuff
and Wild
on
Wild
that.
West. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then huge inspiration was General Tread Morton Red Herring's website, which he gave all these tips and stuff on how to do Victorian warfare and had land ships and stuff like that.
And then they did his sequel book was like, it was pulp though, wasn't it? It was called like To Be Continued or something like that.
He made it smaller, so you were only using single miniatures. So
that's what it was.
Like a squad level game.
Yeah.
Still kept the same mechanics and stuff. Still pretty fun. They still put out really good stuff. I know there's a bunch of people that really like their World War II. I think it's called Combat Patrol. It's a card-based thing where you can just play with cards and everything. What we got warm up? The tacos cost $1. I would munch on Inchies if they were cheap. Of course you would. Inchies for special occasions.
Munching on it.
Wild West, #1 show from the 60s. Yeah, but that movie was total crap. But it gave us some great fodder to build miniatures from. We didn't play Maurice a lot. That's another Sam Mustafa game, but we did play it. It's another great game that's one-on-one because of the way the card deck driven system works. And by that, the cards have different abilities on them, and you can use them either to move, to shoot, to activate, all this kind of stuff. We stopped kind of playing it just because, again, when we played with more than 2 players, it ended up just being a game of 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2 across the table. But still, another great game that we played a lot for a while. Haven't got back to it enough. I really love painting that period of miniatures. Batman and Star Trek, but still, Wild Wild West. Yeah. And Steve didn't really play a whole lot of that with us, but I know Steve played a lot of this with us. Dust. So I got this game just because I totally love the miniatures, the whole Diesel Punk, you know, big German zombies and big walkers and, you know, walking tanks, super armor, jetpacks, all that kind of stuff. The original game was played on a grid system, so you had these big 3x3, 4x4, 4x4 squares, and it was essentially a board game. And I don't know, I didn't like the look of the board game, but I loved the miniatures. And once the bottom went out and they sold it to Fantasy Flight, sold all their stuff, I was able to get a crap ton of the stuff on sale from Miniature Mart in St. Louis, and I got like I think about $1,000 worth of retail stuff for about $200. They had 75-80% off kind of things. Now, what this book does is it takes it off of the grid. This book actually tells you how to play on the grid system if you want, or you can play it just as a straight up miniatures game. So you can play with just on a table without having to use the board, and you use the really simple dice mechanic, and you have cards for all your vehicles. It's a real no-brainer, but it's a ton of fun. I actually, if they made you could play straight up World War II with it, but you need stats for all the vehicles and stuff. So it's as one of our players says, what's great about it is everything is overpowered. So there is no one thing that's overpowered. It's everything is overpowered, which actually ends up being balanced in the end, actually. So a ton of fun to play. We still dig it out every once in a while. For some reason, I like playing it in the winter. I don't know why. Maybe it's because all the pictures are all winter. Mini Warm, it says Blood and Swash looks interesting. I have played it and I do own it. It is a lot of fun. I would take it over Blood and Plunder. Quick and the Dead, Coastal Actions in World War II. I don't know what that means, Mini Warm. The dude has some cool games. Yep, they do. They have some really great stuff. And I haven't met them in person, but I've corresponded with both him and Chris Palmer, and they're both really nice guys. Their latest thing is Wizard of Oz. So they took all the historic Oz nations and Oz stuff that's mentioned throughout I don't know whether they're like 30 now, Oz books. I know he's been dead for a while, but they have the license to write new stuff. Anyway, so you could have a Munchkin army, you can have a Pumpkin army, you can have the Witches' troops, all that kind of stuff. I looked at it, but it was a very fixed system. It was like you have this many units and you have this many stands on it, and it was kind of regulated. And I don't know, I just like messing with my own stuff. The figures were, I think, all done by the people who do Blue Moon. So if you like Blue Moon's figures, you're gonna like them, and they're cool. You can look those up. All right, Steve. If you want to mute one.
No, I'm sorry. We're trying to get our kitchen. As soon as I start talking, is when the drilling starts. So I'll wait a minute.
Yeah. So, well, I'll wait for one that I know you're really excited about. So I'll do some of the ones that you didn't play.
Well, I was going to say real quick that the dust stuff, that was the one that you got. You said you got from what? Miniature Market, dirt cheap.
Yeah,
and then I ended up getting that gigantic collection at
of the Russian stuff.
Yeah, a bunch of the Russian stuff, which we didn't have from recruits at the silent auction. It was like dirt cheap.
They're still making it, but the new stuff is very expensive, and now they've gone into the desert and they've got branched off with Cthulhu
Yeah,
Mythos,
Cthulhu.
and they've added Japanese now, but they had a really small offering. They've got a couple of mechs, and then like the Women's Naval Academy. So it's all these anime-looking characters. I was like, oh man, it was cool when you kind of stuck to the
yeah,
more
and they did like
traditional
their mercenaries. Their mercenaries look like they're like pinup bombshell.
Yeah, they're all it's an all chick army.
Yeah.
They're cool looking. It's just I'm not that interested.
Yeah.
I have all the kind of European theater. The cool thing is you can use like any kind of late war troops too. So if you have a bunch of Tigers and I know there's companies that make sort of tanks that were experimental that never really got made, but they make them. And there's several sites or fan sites where they've taken the dust rules and they've figured out the rules for all of them. So you can do that. One of the ones that I really like that we played a lot, Pulp Alley. This is the second edition, which I haven't actually read the second to see what's quite as different, but I bought it as soon as it picked up.
Yeah.
This was kind of I loved it because it was the same scale we play. You can make all these different factions. I made everything from Pecos Pete and the Giddy Up Gang to the Gray Ghost and his League of Murdered Men, Danger Incorporated. It was a great way to just use a bunch of kind of weird figures that I hadn't done anything with, all the Copplestone gangsters and all the Copplestone kind of pulp stuff and everything like that. I ran a huge game at Recruits with a big island and temple and all that kind of stuff. And David Phipps actually came out to take pictures and stuff. And since then he's been out to Recruits a couple of times. I've met the guy. If not other reason, buy it because he's a really good guy. He puts tons of videos out on YouTube, anything from how to play to how he builds his terrain. The guy is super focused on this period, which is what I like. I had worked with him on a little bit on trying to do some retro sci-fi kind of stuff, which didn't end up going anywhere, but that gave me Galactic Heroes. So ended up working out. But he puts out quality stuff. He's constantly adding. He's got some miniatures on the table on his website. We've been talking. We were talking right before COVID. I was going to go down to Oklahoma, and we were going to tape a show where we played the same scenario with Pulp Alley, and then turn around and playing it with Fistful of Lead. Not as a sort of competition, but just to show fans of his what mine is like, fans of mine what his rules are like. The system's really cool because you use different sided dice. You have very similar to my system where you've got kind of a leader type, a hero, and then his sort of crew is built up. They've got their own skills and stuff. It's all about the scenario. The reason we don't play it more is the same reason we don't play a lot of our games is because this is a great system for about 4 players is where I say you max out, because if you play the rules, one of the cool things about it is the fact that initiative constantly shifts based on whoever controls the initiative decides who moves when, and that shifts based on a couple of different factions, or a couple different things, like if you win a combat, or if the guy who's moving, who controls it, screws up badly, then it shifts to another person, and then they control the action. I think that's a key component of the game itself, which is really hard to keep track of with 8 players. I know this because I ran the game at a convention, and it slowed it down dramatically, and it lost a lot of the flair of why the game is so fun. But again, if you got 2 or 3 people you want to play with, it's a great game. It's really geared towards that size of a game, and I believe there is a solo variant. So if you're a solo player and you like the pulp period, and I know people have taken it other genres to play, and he's done a really good one. Before I get to like 2 of our big ones, I wanted to give anybody who's into ancients. Simon Miller's To the Strongest is a fantastic game. It's played on a first of all, his rules system, his rules themselves are just beautiful. He's got great pictures, really inspirational pictures of armies. It's really good because it's another one. It's a grid-based system. So if you look at his games, the way he's got he shows you how to set up the table to where you actually don't actually see the grid on the table. He uses like small dots or small pieces of flock in the corners. So it sort of disappears in the background when you're playing. You almost don't really see them, but the grid system really allows you to cut out having to measure, so you know exactly how things, and you'd be surprised at how much a game is shortened when you don't have to measure things. He's a really nice guy. Again, it's interactive. I got to see a couple of his games at Salute and get a chance to talk to him. He's a really good guy. He's really good about talking to anybody corresponds with him. He puts out constant lists of army lists and stuff. Most of them are free or next to, they're dirt cheap. You can buy his stuff's printed. You can buy his PDFs. And he actually sells the mats too. So if you don't want to make your own mat, he's got plenty. I think he sources them through somebody else, but again, really cool. The other thing that's great about the rules are it's any scale. So you could play 6mm, you could play 28mm, and it'll fit whatever, your base. It doesn't matter what kind of base width you have. So if you have like an old DBA army or DBM army or whatever, and somebody else that has something else based with a different system, you could still play against each other because it's all about square to square and what's in the square. It's not about like how wide your unit is or counting miniatures or any of that kind of stuff. It uses an interesting mechanic with cards. So there are no dice in it. It's all done with playing cards, which sounds weird, but it's really cool in play. So it has a push your luck element to the whole thing, and there's some really neat aspects to it. He puts out he has another system called For King and Parliament. So if you are an English Civil War, 30 Years War kind of guy, it's same system, but of course upgraded to include gunpowder, all that kind of stuff. I've actually used it for Italian wars kind of stuff. So pike and shot also, but earlier period. I think it does a really good job with that. And we'll move on to another one that we played a lot back in the day, but we've since got away from because of time constraints and other and just being able to play a game on a Thursday night in less than 3 hours. And used to spend a lot of Saturdays playing Fire and Fury. So this was for a long time my go-to Civil War game. I think for a lot of us, it was one of our first Civil War games. I still have a really special place in my heart for it. I love the D10. Other people hate it because of the D10. Growing up in this part of Missouri, there's tons of battlefields around here that are small enough that you can put on a really cool Fire and Fury game. But it's, again, it takes a long time to play a really big a game of Fire and Fury, and we haven't put on one in a long time. But I had to put it in our list of games that we play because at the time, and I still think it has really unique mechanics and still captures that period for Civil War. Okay, what we got? John Longshore. I've always been interested in a very British Civil War. Yep, but still need to pull the trigger. I have looked at his website several times. It's hard for an American to get into because it gets into regional stuff and things like that we're like, what are they talking about? Who are these people? Where is this part of the country you're speaking of? But I could definitely see the appeal in England. I've looked at doing a similar thing. Takes place, during the Depression. You could easily do it here with having another second Civil War in the early 20th century. Have Lindbergh and his silver shirt fascist, faction, and socialist groups that were on the rise, and different trade unions and stuff that could form their own little forces. I've got a friend who's very big into local Kansas City history, and we could definitely put on a cool little game of that. I've also looked at taking the sort of background from Crimson Skies, which I said in the beginning is about the sort of collapse of the U.S. during the Depression, and doing some like ground-based stuff on it. So like some border skirmishes between the People's Collective in Kansas and the Dixie forces in Missouri or something like that, because each faction is backed by larger countries in the world. So like the ISA, the Industrial States of America, which is basically a rust belt of Illinois and Ohio and Michigan and all that stuff, they're all backed by Germany. So they have German planes and vehicles and helmets and stuff like that. So let's see here. Give me a second here. Doop. I'm going to see if somebody here wants to join us for a second. And Stevie, you got anything to add right now?
Well, sorry, they're vacuuming in the other room. No, everything's running late. We're having our kitchen remodeled, and they're trying to prep last minute to get stuff for painting tomorrow. No, I was just going to go back to the Pole Valley real quick, and
please do.
Sorry, I've been on mute. No, he's a really nice guy, and if you haven't played it, and you don't have it's a perfect game for just having a couple of players. Max, I would say 4 people, because it breaks down the fun of the game, and because there's a constant back and forth fighting for who gets the initiative, and you lose track, and there's cards that you play on each other, and it just kind of it screws up what makes, when you have too many, it screws up what makes that game so good.
Yeah, well, we'll take a little message here. So I'm assuming he's talking about that would be fun to do the American Civil War second thing. Yes. Not Jay says he really likes Force on Force, Ambush Alley, Tomorrow's War. Those are great games. I have played them. I'm just not that much of a moderns guy, but I highly endorse it. And again, the authors of that are very nice guys. Yeah, and of course Henry Ford would be back in the fascists probably. So we've got. Hold on. Look who we got.
Howdy, folks.
Hey, what's going on?
Just kicking and watching you guys talk about games you play.
Yeah.
Watching me click on and off the mute button.
Well, Chris has his cats. You've got your horde.
Construction. Yeah. Big
Construction, dogs, all that kind of stuff.
You know, one of the other games that we play, I don't even know if it's more board game that we played in the past that we had a great time with and made and broke friendships over was Attack. That was a blast. It's like Risk on steroids.
Yeah.
But that's more of a board game.
Yeah, board games are going to be for another day. And the reason why I didn't include Blood Bowl, which is another one that friendships were made and broken, because I feel like it's more of it's technically a board game with really cool miniatures. It's not what I'd call a war game, although there are tactics to it and stuff. So I don't. Well, look at that. Jay comes on, or not Jay comes on, and we start to lose viewers.
It's it's about average.
Yeah. So, yeah. So before I hit a couple more of them, Chris, you got any other ones you would like to throw in besides the Ambush Valley guys?
Some games that I haven't played it yet, but I have played with. I just got Clash of Spears, and I have one of my gaming buddies in Austin is Francisco.
Cool.
Really good guy.
That one where you got a big base of miniatures, and then you.
No, this is actually it's designed for skirmish play. So probably 10 to 15 models, maybe 30 models at most aside. It came out in response to Footsore's
Sword Point? No.
Their not Gangs of Rome, but the other Ancients game that they came out with.
Spear Point? No.
No, I'm drawing a complete blank on it now. I've got the full box set for it. Anyway, it's also right after they make the British company that's not the 800-pound gorilla. God, why am I drawing a blank all of a sudden? But they came out with SPQR like really fast and it horribly. So
you're drawing a blank because you're upset about that Jay's comment about us losing viewers as soon as you came on.
You know what? Is what it is.
A lot of the games that we play anymore aren't really on board game anymore.
I'm just some of the other games. Of course, I love Two Fat Lardy's games. Hey, Mr. Beckus. The two that I play the most frequently is Chain of Command, which is my go-to World War II infantry game, and What a Tanker.
Yep.
So those are my two big World War II go-tos. Now I have actually, and the viewers who've watched me for the last 3 years, and now going solo have probably heard me say this several times, but I've created my own war game myself, World War II naval combat, called Ocean Thunder. It was a big hit in the mid-90s in Kansas City.
That's like the title. It sounds like a really bad, like 80s action film.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the title is Ocean Thunder, and then of course everything has to have a tagline. So its tagline is "Where the big guns rumble."
See, again, perfect like 80s or porn thing.
Yeah, exactly. So
name of your sex tape right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's it is definitely. Wait. Is it time?
Uh-oh.
I think
It's
time.
It might be time.
It's time. It's time.
Yep.
Oh, Baron, it's a good one this week. Folks, these are real letters from real people sent to the Baron for the mailbag. Are you ready?
Are you ready, Chris? This is your
Let's
favorite
hit it.
part.
All right. Dear Wiley Games, how do I contact you? Signed, Clueless in Cleveland. Oh, boy.
So I will let that sink in for just a minute.
How do I contact you? Dear Wiley Games email.
Yep. So that was a good one. I had to put
Good
Oh,
God.
God.
So Mitty Warmet wants to see this naval game. I'd also like to see it, Chris. So
Well, next time we get together, I'll bring some stuff over. It is definitely
well,
It
naval
is-
games are easy to carry around. Put them
What's
all in
that?
one box, and then you
Yeah.
just got a big blue table.
Yep.
Now, wait a minute. We're getting off topic here. Clueless in Cleveland needs to know how to get a hold of you.
Well,
Damn it.
I mean, by the very fact
That you got a hold of me.
that we're reading
smoke
that email,
signals. Oh, God.
wait,
I don't
possibly
get it.
semaphore.
Yes.
I think
So
semaphore might be the way to
So I
go.
actually responded to this email and said, you just did. And then I never heard back.
Was it
So
Oh Lord.
I don't know if the shame was too much or what it was. So anyway,
God? So bad.
Ugh. Egregious as to
so
the
Chris,
level of
you could
stupidity.
you could actually bring this out on a Saturday. And as much as I hate naval games, I would play it.
Well, I appreciate
He
that.
he would play with your navel,
Yeah.
All right. Yes.
Yes.
especially on a
Speaking
Saturday.
of naval games, I didn't get my book out to flash it in front, but Space Naval, I was always a huge fan of Full Thrust.
Yes.
Speaking of great-
Love full thrust.
speaking of games that sound like something else,
Yeah.
we played the crap out of that.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
great one.
That and also Dirt Side and
Stargrunt.
Why do all
Stargrunt.
these games sound like porno movies?
Yep.
Well,
Full Thrust, Dirt Side, not Jay's Naval.
Stargrunt.
Star Grunt. Star Grunt 2. They're it's Electric
It's a game that
Boogaloo.
had more counters than you had more counters on the table than you had miniatures.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we used
they were
we used
fun.
Full Thrust. I had all these like dystopian war miniatures and stuff like that, and the rules suck, but I like the miniatures, and so we would use Full Thrust for that. Worked out great.
How many times have I had that problem? The rules suck, but man, these miniatures are great.
Yeah. Well, we won't get off subject and talk about exactly why I write all these rules. So, let's see here.
But
don't
probably
know.
a topic for another day is games that sound like porno movies. Apparently.
Yeah.
About all of them.
Evening, y'all. Hello.
Fistful of lead.
Hey, bud. Any naval game that asks that I get down on the floor is not a thing anymore. Well,
Well, the good thing is mine's tabletop ready.
there you go.
That's what she
Yeah.
said.
Again.
So another game that fits into one big mail crate is that one of our guys, Scott Matthews, puts on is Grand Armée, which is another Sam Mustafa game. Oh, Steve, you got competition coming up. Another Sam Mustafa game that we played with Fast Play Grand Armée, and each stand is 3x3 and is packed full of little 6mm miniatures, and you could play giant Napoleonic games. I think he's now bled it into Blucher is now I think is same scale maybe We haven't played that because, again, we had a game that we liked, so we'll just stick with that one. Everybody knows how to play it. And then John had mentioned the getting on the floor. That reminds me of Thomas Foss and his games.
Yeah.
He put on great game Recruits that was played on the floor, a la old school floor battles like H.G. Wells used to put on. And his love of wooden miniatures, he started creating knights, much like these.
Yeah, they're real cool.
And
they're real cool.
He has written a set of rules for jousting called Breaking Lances, which is a blast to play.
It is so much fun.
It is really, it captures the sort of jousting thing, but keeps it kind of light. And the best part is when you're running a convention, you can just kind of have it going in the background for players that are kind of in between games, and they can just have a couple runs at each other, and then you keep a big tally, and then at the end of the night, kind of a big, Final Four kind of a thing. He's getting ready to do it for a Kickstarter because I don't think he actually offers them on his site yet. I'll have to double check that. But
his
wooden guys are a blast to paint.
His jousting game, I did not get to play in it because I was running a Star Wars game, but I will say that of the several games that he ran, I've never heard a more vocal group of players like cheering and hollering.
Yes.
And it was like if this was at like a big con or something that he was running that on, there's no way that he would not get people to stop and want to play,
right,
just because.
I just got my Kickstarter from him today.
It's also very much a
we lost Brett.
yeah, the Breaking Lances is very much a in my opinion, very much also a spectator game.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Do you bet on it?
You could easily.
But
you
could.
It's got kind of a rock, paper, scissors component to it, but it's really fun because you're trying to guess what your opponent's going to do. So you're either, as you're approaching, you're trying to aim for their head or their chest or their shield, and then they're trying to block head, chest, or shield, and then you compare really simply where they connect, and you're doing that as you approach each other, and then when you finally connect, the bonuses you've made along the way are what add to that final impact and whether you knock the guy off. And then you do best of 3 runs. So, Ken's on here, Mr. Lead Addict. Yes, you did run it. You did win it while they War Game weekend. I believe I was one of your speed bumps along the way. And he said it's Texas Hold'em and rock, paper, scissors all at once. So
yeah, it's a good game.
How many?
All of them, Paul.
All of them, just by tons. You end up using a lot of shock. So not as many wounds as you think. There's a lot of people who get killed.
Yeah, you'll need more shock than one.
You'll either shock them off the table or they'll be insta dead.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to ever. Very few times have I ever run into a situation where I've got multiple wounds on a single character.
Yeah.
Right. It's a fistful of lead, a boatload of shocks.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna do a couple more here, and then I'm gonna give some honorable mentions, games that we've played and we just haven't stuck. They're good games. We just haven't stuck to them because it doesn't fit our. Got a crap ton of guys. Oh yeah, Paul says he'll order 2 10-packs. That'll work. So one that we played at J3 Gaslands. So always been a big fan of post-apocalyptic racing. I originally bought Dark Future back in the 90s. We played a lot of Axles and Alloys. Bought this. I also have bought Billion Suns, which is Mike Hutchinson's other game. Haven't had a chance to play it. Big space combat game.
Of course, the granddad of them all, Car Wars.
Car Wars. Oh God, yeah. I couldn't put that in because Car Wars is technically again a board game. Not that you couldn't play it.
Technically, yes, but who did not immediately start finding micro machines to build out?
Oh yeah, or just blowing up. You could blow up the things, and then his attempts to like play with Hot Wheels side stuff and simplify Car Wars just made it too hard. Car Wars is another one of those like BattleTech that I loved. It was all about the little weeding the little X's away and all that kind of stuff. I loved all that stuff. I forgot to show you a picture. I got Thomas's Kickstarter in the mail. He also sent me the Bard miniature that he painted for the last fantasy book. So I needed a Bard, and Thomas.
Oh, nice!
I'll paint you one. And he did it in like a night, and then he just sent it to me. So,
is that the Space Hobbit thing?
What?
Is that the
Kickstarter?
No, so the Kickstarter guy, yes, is basically the Hobbit.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
Thor
or the Hobbit, rather. Yeah.
And then he sent me this lovely little picture here. So can we try that? I wrote Joust Heroes of the List. All right. Yeah. If you could look on Thomas's site, Skull and Crown Stratagems, I think it's just skullandcrown.com, I believe is his site. I don't know if he's offering them yet, but he is doing a Kickstarter. You don't have to use his wooden guys, but I highly recommend them. They are a blast to paint, and you can paint whatever heraldry you want on them and all that kind of stuff. Speaking of knights, this is our granddaddy. This is the game that I get asked most to play here at the basement with from the other generals. Chris has yet to play it yet. Oldie but goodie. This is Flower Chivalry, done by the Canadian Wargamers group. It is a game, but it's also a guide to the late Middle Ages. There's tons of information. The actual rules of this book are about 6 pages. We have played the crap out of this game. This game is so much fun because you have, I believe, little to no control over your troops, which I feel like a commander in this period wouldn't have that much command either. You've got the way we play it is we've set up a mapless campaign. So you only really need the 2 main guys who are playing, and basically whoever else shows up is how we decide to set up the rest of the game for that night. And we basically have a kickball style, pick your teams. And so a guy who pissed you off last time, or somebody you think is just not a very good player, tends to get picked last. And then we roll randomly before each game to find out what level of commander they are. And they give me anything from a buffoon all the way to a brilliant commander. And the way that translates in the game is how close they have to remain to the overall commander. It's also how close their own troops they have to have. So the dumber you are, you have less control over your troops. And then the overall commander, it's really important because you get a command deck, which is made up of a deck consisting of aces, 2s, and 3s. And so aces count as 1s. So that's how many actions your troops beneath you can carry out. So a brilliant commander has more 3s in his decks and probably only 1-1, whereas a buffoon has all the 1s and 1-3, and then every shade in between there. So you have to learn to make do with what you got. We had one of our players that ended up winning the whole campaign with a consistently buffoon as a commander, and just by playing it smart. And so the way we run the campaign is there's always a pretender, and there's always a claimant to the throne, and the claimant is the guy with the most campaign points. The pretender is the next highest in points, and so it constantly fluctuates. and then the first player to 20 wins. After a battle, the winner of the game can execute a member up to members of either the opposing force or even his own if he doesn't really like him. And those people ended up losing 2 victory campaign points. So you could be the winner, but you got a guy who you're gonna have to face next week. And so even though he's on your side, you might decide to execute him and drop him down. Now that's our own campaign rules. That's not in the actual book, but the actual book has some really great system where what orders you give your units are how much battle lust they build up. So if they're constantly charging, they're building up their battle lust, but they get to a certain point, they get tired and they fight like crap. The other end of the spectrum is if you keep your troops standing around, they start to actually lose battle lust and they start to get tired and they don't want to stick around. They start looking at their watches going, why am I here? Kind of a thing. So it's a really fun little system. We've modified it. The original game you use units use like 6 stands. I just use a single stand packed full of miniatures, and then we just keep track of wounds and stuff on a dry erase marker with a Rouster sheet. So let's see here. So here we go. John Longshore said, just leave Henry VIII alone. He was a terrible jousting wound, and that turned him into a monster. Ken says, Flower Chivalry is a great game. It's a fantastic game. We played the crap out of it. And, yes, there are some great scenarios in there, and it covers everything from 100 Years' War, Scottish War.
'Tis a blast.
And the War of the Roses. So we've managed to take a game that I bought, 93, and we've been playing it that long. It's a little undiscovered gem that a lot of people don't know about. So, Chris, you got any undiscovered gems that people don't know about? Anything?
Not really. I mean, I got plenty of
Other than your own game?
plenty of board games that FASA put out.
We'll do a show on that, and we'll have like Todd and Jeff on and that kind of stuff. Like Steve mentioned, we used to play Attack a lot, but it made us, there were people you didn't want to see for a month after you played that.
The best,
brutal.
It's a board game, but the best way to play this board game, so you don't end up wanting to literally stab your best friend, is diplomacy, and that's play by mail.
That's the other way to play it, because I've done it in person, and
you just want to murder people.
We used to play at work. We used to play by mail the Renaissance version of that. It's diplomacy, but you're playing in Renaissance Italy, and now I can't think of the name of it.
Italy.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to Italy.
Yeah.
Welcome to Italy. That's
game.
Yeah.
So
Flowers of Chivalry, man. No, I was just going to say I'm just waxing poetic here. How we need to play that again very soon.
We'll play it here not too long. We'll start the campaign up again. COVID messed up the last campaign. We were right in the middle of it. Brett was I think our claimant to the throne, the unlikely claimant, and that was fun because of course we made up all the different characters for it that had it, and by the end you're on your third version of your particular nobleman. You're on his grandson because Grandpa and Dad got their heads lopped off.
And it is a great game. It is a great game to play, speaking for our group, because we don't always have the same people there every time we play. So
Yeah.
it's like if you got your one leader that is picking sides.
Well, and I don't think that just applies to that game in particular.
No, true.
If you are playing a campaign, I think that's one of the best ways to do it is to have a system where it doesn't matter if everybody shows up. So I tried when I wrote the campaign system for my games, I tried to do that. Ken says diplomacy in person is the only way to play. Yeah, but you get stabbed. Make sure everyone leaves their weapons at the door for that one. But yeah, having to have because there's a lot of strategy to it. Because if me and Steve go over in the corner to talk, and we may be fighting, we may be yelling, not having agreement. Everybody else that's in the room thinks that me and Steve have now made a little deal. Right. And so they're all going to jump our ass because they think that we're putting a little deal together. And that
just because of paranoia.
Yeah, and that in itself can be a tactic. So I could be like thinking, I just need to get Steve over here, and then they're going to think that we're together, and then they're going to. So there's plans within plans to do some Dune speak. So as we're winding down here, and like I said, we're not covering role playing, we're not covering board games that much. Like I said, Blood Bowl is a huge part of our gaming experience, but I put that in with board games. We've played a couple of games of like I've gone a complete Frostgrave and games like that, which are great one-on-one games, but I don't feel like I think they take too long when we tried to play on bigger scale. So again, there's plenty of games that we've played or tried out and we've covered tonight that are fantastic for a smaller group, and we still get them out when we have fewer people show up. So yeah, diplomacy is all about paranoia, negotiation, and personality. I totally agree, which I think you lose some of that playing by mail. So
yeah, it's like the whole paranoia thing. That is, I'm gonna have to start remember that. It's just I'm just gonna go and talk to so and so.
Playing game on another tangent. So
yeah, I'm just thinking of some other stuff.
Yeah,
so getting chatted there.
Yeah, we're so for those that don't know, we used to play every Thursday here, or at some other people's, occasionally at other people's game places, but we COVID, of course, broke that all up, but the silver lining to that whole thing has always been
D&D.
We got to play D&D together, so we started that whole up, and we're on 18 months of playing that, and that's been fantastic. And that is one that actually has turned out to be almost better as a remote game than it is playing in person. And then every other week we do still play for as long as we can here, unless restrictions come back down on us again. I've got the table set up right now for our Nothing But Bounty Hunter game coming up, not this Thursday.
Next week.
I see it in the background there. So it's half the table that Chris, you got to see. I've just smushed everything together, and it's going to be all the great Star Wars bounty hunters together. Steve's picking up the remnant troopers that hopefully will be ready for that. So
he hopes.
So they're going to be collecting bounties. They're going to be collecting bounties around the town and stuff like that. It ought to be a complete bloodbath. Lots of jetpacks and lasers going off.
Per usual. So it'll be Galactic Heroes. Just a sweet little nice game of Galactic Heroes.
The last game was Bigger Battles, which I'll be putting together just a slideshow for that, because that was a long game by intention. So I didn't want to make a 4-hour video. We could have done it quicker, but we wanted to just hang out and have fun and eat birthday cake and drink beer and
Yes.
stuff like that. So
We had a lot of
you
fun.
get to be IG88 because you never come out to play.
That's right.
So
And besides, IG-88 was killed by Boba Fett, so you'd have to go with IG-11. Oh, wait.
Wait, and then we have IG90 or something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very excited. We'll do a Star Wars tangent here for a second. I'm very excited to see what the Book of Boba Fett's going to bring us with, how much they're going to stick to or bring in the lore from the War of the Bounty Hunters whole timeline or storyline.
Well, I heard the comic that's out. See, now I'm getting all Star Wars nerded again. The comic that's out.
We're having a 10-minute Star Wars discussion before we
Go. The comic that's out right now is what is it? War of the Bounty Hunters. Remarkably, I think finishes up right when Boba Fett comes out, and I had read things that they're gonna tie into the show, but.
Well, I also read that they're having problems because Pedro Pascal's to sort of his work schedule is throwing back when they can start finishing stuff up for or even start on Mando and all the.
Well, he's not
between how Ahsoka and the Kenobi series were all going to line up. It was all going to be tied together at a certain timeline, and now it might be thrown off just because of he can't.
Well, he's hardly ever. They have doubles and stuff. He's for the first season or second season. There was stuff where he wasn't available at all, and they
said a stand-in guy. He just has to do the. Really, if he's keeping the helmet on, all he has to do is do the voiceover. So who cares?
Right.
But that tells me there's going to be a lot more stuff with him walking around without the helmet on.
Yeah, I would guess it's like you made a big point to have him take the helmet off. So why in the hell are you going to put it back on?
Yep.
Keep from getting a headshot, I guess. But who knows?
All right.
Anywho.
All right. Any other honorable mentions and this could be from people listening or you guys on some other non-Wiley games that you guys play or like or love that need to have that you play regularly, that even if they came out with a new edition, you would still just play the same game again. Steve, think back.
I am thinking back, and the only thing that I bought.
Steve goes back all the way to the original origins of Fistful of Lead, back when I had like 4 or 5 buildings and no terrain, and we were just painting up old Glory miniatures and stuff.
And Jay would say, "These rules suck. I'm going to make my own."
Yeah, which ties into our Star Wars discussion, because I had that character that we called Ugly George because you look like George Lucas, because you look like it's sculpted with goiter. And is George Lucas even involved anymore? Oh no, anything that's good, George hasn't touched.
Well, he's come out and hung out with Favreau and Filoni on Mandalorian.
Filoni is his protege, and is probably the biggest Star Wars nerd ever. That's why the last ones have come up. Paul Becca says, "I'm a bolt action player and I love it. I have played bolt action several times, and I will tell you that it all depends on who I'm playing with. I have had really good games of bolt action that are fun, but an 8-player bolt action game don't work unless you alter it and just we've played with my card system and then just kept the dice rolls for bolt action, and it was actually a lot of fun. Blitzkrieg Commander, yes, Todd, I have played a crap ton of Blitzkrieg Commander. That is one of, if I want to play that scale of World War II, that's the game I'm going to play. And Future War Commander is also a good one. And then Todd also says, Naval Thunder.
which is different than my game.
Really?
Yours is
Yeah.
naval. What is your naval cleaner?
No, mine's Ocean Thunder, which came out
Ah.
in the early 90s. I have no idea when Naval Thunder came out. I think they stole my name.
Maybe he meant Ocean Thunder. And
No, he means Naval Thunder.
Honorable
Or
with
Dr.
the U.
Thunder.
Blitzkrieg Commander mentioned. Yep. So I think I've played every version of the Commander series, which of course we know is all based off of the old War Master system.
Yeah.
So, which I like War Master too. Great. What did they have? A 4-player? Was it 4 or 6-player War Master game at J3?
4-player.
It was a 4-player one. I don't know if it ever happened. Did they ever play? It didn't seem
I
like they ever did.
don't know if they ever pulled the trigger on it or not. It was all
Okay.
set up.
There you go, Thundering Naval. That's
There
what it
you
is.
go.
All right, but yeah, I've played all those. I've played Blitzkrieg Commander at 6mm scale or whatever it is. 1/280. What is it? 1/285th scale. Is that 6mm essentially?
Yeah.
And then I've played it at 15mm. The way I like it is basically using Flames of War miniatures, but then playing Blitzkrieg Commander instead. And then, have you tried the free Black Powder Tactical Commander for the? Why? It's you could already play 15mm black powder if you wanted to. Yeah. And the only thing that I don't like is the fact that they went to the same strips that Old Glory was already doing, and I think doing better. So I would almost use the tactical commander game and then just use the 10mm stuff from Old Glory. Ken had the Evil Empire's early works are great. Yes. Oh God, I can't believe that I didn't put them on my list. Epic and Man of War are fantastic.
Loved Man of War.
I still have all my Man of
yeah.
War stuff. So GW's thing that was always weird to me were their best games as far as rule system, they sort of put out there and then they just left to die. So Man of War was a fantastic game that I think it's because it didn't need to be messed with that they never did any more with it. We used to play the crap out of Man of War, and then they just sort of left it to die. They did it with Necromunda. They did it with Blood Bowl for the longest time too, where they just they put it out there, put out some stuff, and then they just never really followed it up.
Do you think that they? I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that they have successful games like that, and then it's like, well, we're not getting enough. There's not enough people loving our main core games or something. So if we pull them in with this and then we shit can it, then they'll stick around and start
But
playing.
they could have kept making stuff.
Our core
game. They could have re-released it. They did that one weird one-off that they did with the scales. It was War Master, or not War Master. It was Man of War, but then they made the ships like different scale from the original one, and it was just like a one-off thing, and it was really expensive.
Death Fleet.
Yeah, there you
or
go.
Dread Fleet.
Something
like that.
There you go. And then Epic's another one that I started out with the original Adeptus Titanicus with the big plastic ones, and then they brought it, and then I bought Space Marine back in the early 90s. I bought it in Houston. My mom was living there, and those were fantastic. I bought everything there was to buy for it. I bought all the variants for the different Adeptus Titanicus stuff and everything. Thomas has been doing a good job of reviving that kind of stuff with his group. And then all the miniatures and stuff. I had all the Gargants and the Eldar and all that kind of stuff. That was a great game to play. In fact, I'm looking at taking that same original Space Marine Epic rules and doing something else with them. So,
Do you still have those minis?
yeah, I got a ton. No, I sold them all to certain person who loves little 6mm stuff and will never get to play with it. Mr. Reese, Mr. Another J.
It goes locked up in his Indiana Jones
It is vault.
vault, never to be seen again.
Being taken care of by top men.
Well, and the thing about it is I kept, but what I didn't do is didn't give him was I kept all my squats, which don't exist in the new, but they were their own faction in the epic scale. So I've got all my little space dwarves and all their weird land tanks and their motorcycles and all their strange stuff that they had, and I've got the little rattling snipers and little ogrins and all that kind of stuff. That was such a great game. Thanks for reminding me of those, Ken, because those were a big part of my developmental. And we used to just play Space Marine on the floor with just the little buildings that they had and all that kind of stuff, or epic as it's known now. That's why it was so weird that when they re-released the Titanicus stuff, they made it at a different scale. So it's not the same scale that it was originally. And I'm like, did you just do this to dick with me?
Yeah, they did.
Did they do it so you had to be rebuy it all?
Yeah. Benny Warmuth says, I can't wait for, I always say, Simon, come on, whatever, Ghostbusters.
When is that coming out? I haven't seen that one.
I don't know, but their zombie side, they're releasing basically the Thundercats for it. There's only one.
How is that? What the hell are you doing with that?
They did all these weird one-offs. They've got all these weird little one-offs as a chance to just do whatever they wanted. I am most excited, of course, for the Masters of the Universe.
Yes, indeed.
Which
it's
going to come out right when I've been forbidden to spend any more money because we got to get all our stuff out. And Ken said it's just a dick with us, and it is just a dick with us making the stuff making it a weird scale that we can't use. But
yeah, the Masters of the Universe stuff. I have very high expectations for that, and I don't.
Once again, we'll be buying it for the miniatures and not for the game.
Correct. Well, that just for the Castle Grayskull alone looks so kick-ass.
We'll have two of them. We'll put them on opposite ends of the table, Steve, and play like a capture the flag game out of it.
Well, I'm wondering if they'll end up doing a Snake Mountain as a add-on or something.
Oh God, it's going to be like the Cthulhu where they had the baby-sized Cthulhu that you could get. So
yeah, they'll have all kinds of shit. I hope so. We'll see.
All right,
we'll see.
Well, we're at the hour and a half mark, so we're probably I think we've covered a bunch of the.
We've covered every game.
We have. We really have.
Well, every game that's worth talking about.
Well, and like I said, there's tons of games out there that that we didn't mention just because of the fact that for our particular group they don't work, and it has nothing to do with whether they're and then there's just they
don't work for size.
There's a personal preference thing. I've played tons of Black Powder. I've played Bolt Action. I've played lots of the Warlord games. I've got all of them. I've got the second edition of Black Powder. If nothing else, just for the pictures in them. I'm just looking over at my game shelf. I've got 2 game shelves of rules. One of them's games that's out here that we play a lot, which is where I pulled most of these from. And then I've got ones in the vault too. So, God, there's a Disney Gargoyle board games. I had no idea.
What rule set was it when we were doing pirate battles? What rule set was that?
For the ship-to-ship battles, that would be Thomas Foss's back when he was a member of the flagship games company that he helped start. back in the early 90s, and they did all the ships, and then I used all the Foundry Pirates, and that was purely a ship-to-ship game, but it was a blast because it was all about guesstimating your range. So if you're somebody who can look at a table and go, that's 47 inches, and you would literally put a little target marker where you would where you thought that that's what the number was, you thought that's where the yeah, where you wanted to hit, and then that's where you placed it. And if you were really good about knowing exactly where to drop it, that's where the cannonball hit. And they could do stuff like skips and everything like that. And it was simplified, but it was a really fun game. It's just I ended up selling most of that stuff, and of course now I'm like, man, why didn't I keep that stuff? Stupid stuff.
Was that so? That was Thomas's company that made that.
Yeah, so he helped form
back in the day.
Games back in the day, and they had their own stuff. And we'll have to ask him when he's on. So the next one that we're going to do here in a couple weeks is going to be game design and sort of philosophy. So I'm going to have him on and maybe a couple other rules authors that I know and Steve, and we're just going to talk about philosophy around writing rules and stuff like that. So anyway, we're gonna call it right here. And Chris, thanks for coming on.
Certainly, thanks for having me.
I want to get another perspective, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.